everyone, how you doing today? My name is Kirsty, aka Beth Bookish, and this is Read It or Reap Part 2. This is a project that I started in May where I was inspired by Book Roast and Becca in the Book and two videos that they were doing at the time, and I kind of merged the two together. Basically my TBR shelves are full and I have overflow that I stack in front of them, and so the idea of this project is basically the books that I'm either reluctant to read, have had for forever and need to get rid of, or the books that have been bought most recently. They all go onto those piles before they get put onto the TBR shelf. And then the idea is to read through as many of them as I can throughout this year, and by the time I leave for Australia in October, at the end of October, beginning of November, by the time I leave, whatever is left will be thrown out. The only exception will be anything that was bought this year or is one that I know I'm super hyped for. The other thing with Read It or Reap is when it comes to moving downstairs and putting them on the shelves, I have very limited shelf space. I do have gaps currently, so it's not going to be a problem right now, but eventually there is going to be a point where I'm going to have to unhaul books in order to fit the ones I've just read on. So again, that comes into that kind of idea of reaping, but there is a couple of new additions this time round that just are going to increase and add to the project. The very first thing will be in terms of the reaping. I didn't do any sort of reaping last time, and what I've decided is, because some of the books I picked and it took me 4, 5 or even 6 days to start, so now I'm implementing the rule that if I haven't started to read it within 48 hours of rolling the dice and picking it, I have to then roll the D4, and whatever number that comes up, I've got to unhaul that amount of books. And that's just going to serve as a little bit more of an incentive to start reading the books immediately, or to decide, no, I don't want to read them, unhaul. I'm also introducing some reading activity prompts. This is what Book Roast did in her series. She rolled her dice, picked a book, and then inside the book would be like a little activity prompt to do alongside the reading prompt, alongside the reading. I have taken some of the ideas that she had, and then I've gone through and picked some of my own things. So some of the things that she had were, wear an outfit in the colours of the book cover, do a prediction bingo, those are on there, but some of my own ones include designing a bookmark based off the cover of the book. There's a make a candle, because as you know, I have my candle business, so I will make a candle that links to a character or the characters. I've got sort of like character tier ranking, just various little things that I can do alongside the reading. So you can see here, I've got a little video playing here, and you can see all of the 20 that I've come up with. I might change these as I go, I don't know. But I just thought it would be fun to do that as a little extra, and just, raise the stakes for the reaping part, and also add in a bit more fun to do when I'm reading. Last time I started with 40, I ended on 37 because we cleared 3 books. I did, after some reshuffling, because obviously I've taken a bunch of books out for my Asian Readathon TBR, so some of those books were off there. There were gaps on the shelves because I did unhaul a few books that I wasn't interested in, and so the shelves have reshuffled ever so slightly, which meant some of the books were able to go back onto the shelves and off the piles. However, I did then, as you can see in my spring haul, towards the end of the month of April, I did buy a bunch of books, and I ended up with like 8 books or something. So by the time I added those in and recounted, I was back up to 41. So it's like, great, cool, that's fantastic. So we're actually starting this round with more books than we started with at the very beginning of this. But that's the whole thing with this project, is it's going to fluctuate. And the idea is to eventually end up with a much lower number, if not 0. But I'm also fully aware that we're probably going to have to do a big unhaul at the end of the year. Anyway, on to this round. Let's go roll the dice, find out what we're reading, and then you'll see me in not even a minute or 2, and we'll talk about it. So let's go. This is our current piles. The books get moved around constantly, but it's mostly the same books. Pile 3, so it'll be one of these. And we have book 11, so that's going to be that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Cool. And the prompt will, like the little activity prompt will be 16. Cool. I picked The Last Spell Breather by Julie Pike. I did also pick a bookmark for it. I've picked this bookmark for it because I saw little fox on the bookmark, little fox on the cover. So, and as you saw on the thing, it was to create a bookmark. I rolled number 16 for the activity, which is to create a bookmark inspired either by the cover or the contents of the book. Obviously, we've got these little intricate designs here. We've got a gold and red and blue colour scheme. We've got foxes, we've got books. There are so many things that I can take inspiration from the cover alone. So even if I end up DNFing this or not enjoying it, I can do a bookmark inspired with these things. So I'm excited to do that. But this one is a middle grade, and it's basically spell breathing does not come naturally to Rain. She loathes the hours of practice, the stacks of scrolls, and the snapping mud devils that cover her mother's precious spell book. But it is spell breathing that keeps her village safe from the dreaded monster curse that plagues their world. It is ancient, powerful magic, but as Rain learns to her horror, it is also fragile. In one clumsy move, the magic that keeps them safe is broken, her village is plunged into danger, and an incredible adventure begins. As you know, I'm not a middle grade reader. As you also know, I did pick up, like this one I picked up thinking it was a YA. I didn't know it was middle grade, but it does sound good and it does look so pretty, and I love the book and the fox and just... I have 48 hours from now to get this started. Let's see how we go. I literally started this with about 2 minutes to go before the 48-hour deadline. I mean, in my defense, I did pick it up on the day that I rolled it and picked it up. I did take it to bed and I read the first page, I think 3 times, but by that point, words were just ceasing to make any kind of sense and sentences just weren't happening in my brain. So I did put it down. So technically I did pick it up, but this time I actually did start it. And I got to page 5 when my phone started ringing from a call from my stepmother who wanted to just check in on me. But I did start it. So I'm just going to continue now. I'm going to read a little bit more before bed. I'm going to go back to watching videos, reading this, and hopefully I'll have an update soon for you all. Unfortunately, my time with middle grades has come to an end again. I got 4 chapters in. I read 48 pages. And I was kind of like, I'm really not sure I'm enjoying this. And then I had a look on Goodreads and I saw more than one review where it turns out that it's basically a world where they're a very isolated community. There's a barrier that keeps them hidden from the rest of the world because there are these monsters on the outside. And it turns out that these monsters are essentially just people with deformities. And as one of the reviews said, they don't really appreciate the message, considering this is aimed at children. They don't like the message of deformities being, like someone in the book loses the ability to use one of their arms and that's seen as a decent punishment. And she was like, I don't really like the association that, imagine if you're a child who only has one arm and you're basically being told through this book that it's because you've done something bad and that only bad people get those punishments and everyone else is healed and made well. And I was like, oh yeah, I do not want to read that. So I also really did not like the main character. She was so cringy and whiny. In 48 pages, I wanted to slap her 3 times. So I was like, nah, me and middle grade, I don't think are. However, as you saw, I did have to do a bookmark for this. Like, the activity that I rolled for this was to make a bookmark. And I will say the cover, where it's got all these letters in gold foiling floating around the book, I'm definitely intrigued by that design. So I am thinking I'm going to do a bookmark with kind of this bluish background, with a navy background with gold lettering. But it means we also now need to go pick another book. So we're starting off how we did the last time with a DNF. Hope this doesn't become a recurring theme. Okie dokie. Our piles, as always. So we're going to be getting pile number 2, book number 7. So we got With Fire in Their Blood by Kat Delacourt. I originally had no interest in this book, or very little interest, and I'd never even heard of it. And then when I went to Yauk in 2022, she was on a panel with Finbar Hawkins, the author of Witch, Juno Dawson, the author of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, along with many, many other books. Carrie Thomas, I think, who's the author of Threadneedle, and Shannon Smart, the author of Witches Steeped in Gold. And they were doing a witchy panel talking, oh, was it Deirdre O'Sullivan as well, the author of Perfectly Preventable Deaths? I don't think I am, but I could be getting some of my panels confused, but I think I've got that right. But anyway, Kat was on the panel, and the way she was talking about her book and the way that she was expressing her passion, it made me really, really interested in the book. And then she was, because at the time this hadn't been published when she was at Yauk, so they didn't have any physical copies. She instead was signing prints for anyone that went to her stand. So I went over, had a chat with her, said that I was really interested, and I gifted her one of my wax melts, because when I went to Yauk I took a bunch of candles and wax melts that I gave out, including to Gavin from, well, How to Train Your Gavin anymore, is he? He's Gavin Reads It All. But him, JD Ray Reads, Beth from Beth Bartholomew, they all got a little gift, and a few authors got some gifts, and I said to her, would you be interested? And she was like, what is a wax melt? Apparently in Italy they don't have wax melts, so she didn't know. So I explained to her what they were, and she was like, gimme, 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 gimme. And so yeah, it was just like, you know, I've got fond memories of meeting the author with this, and it's a shame that they didn't have the physical book on the day, because I would have loved to have got it signed. And like I said, I do have a print for it, so if I end up loving this, the print will go on the wall of bookish merch that eventually I will find space for again somewhere. But yeah, this one follows a teenager called Lily, who the family have moved, after the death of her mother, they moved from Maine to Italy. And she's kind of like, you know, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do it. And then she starts to uncover some secrets, but there's a magical element there. And when she gets involved with this group of kids, I think if I remember rightly, this is a polygamous relationship. And so she falls into this group of students, but then she starts to uncover these mysteries and starts to question things. And then it is discovered that there is more to her than she originally thought, because as it says here, then she accidentally breaks Castello's most important rule. When they test your blood, you'd better not be anything more than human. But anyway, that's enough talking. Let's get on and read. Okay, I have made an executive decision regarding wherever it has disappeared off to with Fire in Their Blood. I opened it, I read the first page, and it had an interesting opener, because it was her leaving a letter saying, you know, enjoy the place, but I haven't gone near it since, and I have no motivation. So I am going to call it, because even though I started it in the time frame that I've set, I didn't finish it, and I haven't been back to it since. That one is a DNF, but because I only DNF'd it on one page, and yeah, it's time to throw the dice on the floor. So we're going to roll the D4, and we're going to unhaul some books, probably off these shelves, and I've got a bunch of books down here that I was filming with yesterday, and I think there's a few unhauls on there. So let's see how many we're going to get rid of. 3. Okay. That ended up being far easier than expected, because the DNFs were all on the top pile. So including With Fire in Their Blood, there are 4 that I've unhauled. And so we have With Fire in Their Blood by Kat Delacourt, Twisted Love by Anna Huang, The Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil, and The Last Spell Breather by Julie Pike. And those of you that are eagle-eyed or good at memory will recognise these two. Well, The Last Spell Breather I DNF'd earlier this video, and The Doll Factory was my first DNF for this series. Oh, that means that I'd already unhauled them. Okay, back to the shelves. Let's try and find 2 more, because technically I had already unhauled them because I DNF'd them. So let's go back to the shelves. Again, so yeah, as I realised, technically I had already unhauled those 2, so we needed 2 more, and I've settled on the On Honeymooners by Christina Lauren that I DNF'd and didn't enjoy at all, and a graphic novel, Voices That Count, which is a comics anthology written by Spanish women. It just wasn't as good as other anthologies, comics anthologies that I've read. 6 books total, so this stack is unfortunately heading on to Vinted. But with that means it's time for our next roll, so let's head on upstairs and find out what the next book is going to be. I'm hoping for a 2 or 3, which means I'm going to get 1 or 4, but let's find out what's the dice going to do to us today. Oh, a 2. Okay, give me a nice one. 19. Obviously I don't have 19. Okay. Okay, we have a reread, and as you all know, if you've been around for a while, you may have seen this one pop up every now and again. It keeps appearing and then disappearing on TBRs, but obviously now I have to read it. This is Dragonbound by Thea Harrison. This is book 1 in the Elder Races series. Now, I believe I read this series when I graduated university and when I lived in this house the first time. And I got up to, I think, book 3 or 4. And then for whatever reason, I never finished it. But I do remember reading this. I do remember enjoying it. I can't remember why I stopped reading the series. But this is a paranormal romance series, and it does feature a dragon shifter. And as you know, dragons are not really on my buzzword list anymore. But half human and half weir, Pia Giovanni spent her life keeping a low profile among the weir kind and avoiding the continuing conflict between them and their dark fae enemies. But after being blackmailed into stealing a coin from the hoard of a dragon, Pia finds herself targeted by one of the most powerful and passionate of the elder races. As the most feared and respected of the weir kind, Dragos Culebra. Why do authors give impossible sounding names? Cannot believe someone had the audacity to steal from him, much less succeed, and when he captures the thief, Dragos spares her life, claiming her as his own, to further explore the desire they've ignited in each other. Pia knows she must repay Dragos for her trespass, but refuses to become his slave, although she cannot deny wanting him body and soul. Now, I do remember one big spoiler about this, because obviously it says half weir, so she is, weirs are like shifters, so, and she has like the blood of a specific thing, and I remember what that is, and I remember that that was like a big secret, and throughout he's trying to figure out what she is. So I do remember that bit, and I do remember it's not really a spoiler because it's obvious that they're the pairing, they always end up together. I will say it's not in this book, but in future books in this series, if you are not a fan of pregnancy and having, like, when the characters have babies, they do become side characters later on in the series, but I remember there is a pregnancy eventually with these 2 characters. So if that's not your thing, please be aware. So yeah, I will give it a go and we'll see how I get on. I haven't read the first entire chapter because that's a lot more pages than I really want to read right now. But I have read the first 7 pages, because I've gotten up to where it starts here. So I was like, there's a natural break, I will stop there. And as I was doing it, I've written a list of objects. If I'm going for a walk, I'm not likely to find crystals, a cauldron or a gun, especially not in the UK. I'm taking out car, signs, trash and cement wall, because around my house there is a cement wall at the back of my house, like just opposite the road there is a cement wall. So the second I walk out of my house I will have finished the task. So I'm trying to find, same with cars, there's always cars in this area. Trash, I live in a shithole. So there is always rubbish and trash everywhere you go. I'm thinking the best options for this will either be water bottle or backpack, because the routes that I tend to walk and where I like to go for walks tend to be more sort of outdoorsy and like towards the lakes and towards the meadow. And I figure that people walking along those same routes or having the same idea as me, they might be more likely to carry a water bottle with them. So we shall see how that goes. But yeah, with that I can safely say I have started it in the first, I think I rolled the dice about 5 or 6 hours ago now. So in the first sort of 5 or 6 hours I have started it, so at least I'm not going to get punished for not starting it. And I can tell that I'm going to enjoy this one, I think, because it's just, she's stolen the object. There's a massive roar suddenly erupts across the entire city. And it says, if she were in a race for her life, that roar was the starter pistol. If God were the referee, he had just shouted go. And I was like, yes, I'm instantly interested. So yeah. I finished Dragonbound this morning, and whilst I can see why as a teenager I really like this series and I had a great time, but now that it's like at least 12 years since I last read it and I've become obsessed with Nalini Singh, and I've also read a lot of other stuff that features these kind of relationships, I was like, I don't think I'm going to continue on this one, and I don't think I'm going to go back to this series. It was interesting enough, and I remember who the pairing is for the next book, and I'm like, God damn it, I now want to read the next book. There were a few gem moments that I liked and a few characters that I really love and want to continue reading, but there was also a few things that I really did not like about this one. So one of the big things I didn't like, I wrote it all down and then I've left the thingy over there, my little notes that I wrote this morning. The world building was really good. I liked how all of the different races were incorporated. I liked how it wasn't that the Weir and the non-human kind have just kind of taken over and decided that humans are no longer worth anything. I like the fact that they've sort of learnt to live with humans and that they coincide with humans, and I think that was really well done. I really liked how it included creatures you don't necessarily see very often. A lot of these tend to be more like with shifters, we get your typical things like, you know, wolves, cats, bears. You know, you tend to get those kind of shifters, like very heavily predatory, and they also tend to, like, a lot of these sort of paranormal urban romances tend to have things like vampires and like things like that. But this one included sort of the main character was a dragon, which, you know, isn't my favourite, and I will admit he was my least favourite of all the characters. Just I couldn't really give a crap about him. But it also has unicorns, griffins, harpies. We even had goblins, which again, you don't see in these kind of things very often. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I like that the main character wasn't what you expect. She wasn't just like a pushover, and she wasn't this badass that no one can touch. She had a really good blend of like really vulnerable moments as well as knowing when to be strong, and I really liked Pia as a character. And I really loved the banter between the characters, especially like once she was brought into Dragos's sort of circle and was meeting people like Rune and Graydon and all of that, and the way she was bonding with them. I love their banter and the relationships between all those characters. It even has a Thunderbird in here, which is amazing because, you know, it brought in Native American culture, and I really liked that acknowledgement. But I did find that other than that, the world was very rudimentary. Like the descriptions of people, places, things was very, very basic. Like I didn't really get the most solid understanding of what everyone looked like. And the descriptions of the actions, like when it came to the smutty scenes, I know I'm not a big smut reader, but when I do read it, I like it to be a little bit it was cringy, but not in that it was giving me the ick, but in that the writing was just like, it felt like a teenager was writing it, because it was like she couldn't help but stare at his sexy abs. Like, just the context of that was not very great. And when they were actually getting, it was just, it felt like a 12-13-year-old trying to write about sex when they don't really know what it is. And I didn't like a lot of the words that she used to describe the body parts of all of that. I was just like, just called them, just call them by their names. Yeah. So the romance and that side of it, I really didn't actually enjoy, and I didn't like how controlling he was, and they tried to play it off as, well, he's been around since the dawn of time and has never had to learn these behaviors, and it's like, well, it doesn't mean he's excused from treating her like crap at times. Yeah, so I felt like the relationship and the romance side of it was actually the worst part of it. I preferred more like the friendship side of it and the day-to-day goings on and the battle scenes and the fighting. And also some of the writing was really bad. Like, Pia, every single sentence called someone either big guy, slick. She's like, oh, you gotta get it right, slick, you're never gonna put me down. And it was just, the writing and the dialogue was a bit cringy at times. So even though I really like the world building, I like that it included all the different characters, just the romance, which is 80% of the book is built on the romance, I just was not having the best of times with. So I have given this one 3.5. Sorry, I was not even holding it. So this one has got 3.5. I may at some point go to the second book, but I definitely can't see me ending up obsessed with it. Anyway, that is another one done. But anyway, I'm going to go. And yeah, another 3.5. Done. I actually forgot that Dragonbound was one of the books for this vlog. So when I went to bed last night, I was like, oh yeah, I need to roll the dice. So I did that last night. So here are the rolls. We have the book. Now to find out what the activity is going to be. So D20. And the book we got was The Roommate by Rosie Dannon. And then I rolled for the activity. We got an 8, and that means I need to write in my journal anytime about anything that I connect with the main character on. So that could be quite interesting to find out, because I definitely find more in rom-coms I connect with characters more than in, say, heavy high fantasy, but I still get a lot of connections. Clara Wheaton is the consummate good girl, overachieving, well-mannered, utterly predictable. When her childhood crush invites her to move cross-country, the offer is too good to resist. Unfortunately, it's also too good to be true. Suddenly, Clara finds herself sharing a house with a charming stranger. Josh might be a bit too perceptive, not to mention handsome, for comfort, but there's a good chance he and Clara could have survived sharing a summer sublet if she hadn't looked him up on the internet. Once she learns how Josh has made a name for herself, Clara realises living with him might destroy the reputation she's spent years building. But while they may not agree on much, both Josh and Clara believe women deserve better sex. What they decide to do about it will change both of their lives, and if they're lucky, they'll help everyone else get lucky too. It's a book about sex, which I didn't think or know it was when I first picked it up. I know I'd seen it everywhere. I thought it was just kind of like a room share or a house share and it was a bit different. So we all know how I feel about smut. We all know how I feel about sex books. So yeah, as said, it's 1 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon, which means I have until 1 p.m. on Thursday to start this. Otherwise, we're going to have to roll the punishments again and see and unhaul a bunch of books, including this one. So let's get started on that and see where we go. It's the same day, it's just a bit later, a lot later. I've decided I'm not going to read this one. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm just not interested. Because I didn't even start it, this doesn't count as a punishment roll. I just unhaul it. And then before I roll for the next one, I will say I really liked the prompt that it gave me. So I'm just going to carry that prompt over, the journaling, with like anything I connect with the main character on. So we're going to keep that in mind, and we're going to go upstairs and pick the next book. And yeah, whatever I pick, I will be doing the journaling. So let's go pick another book. Okay, we have our next book. It is The Beckoning Shadow by Catherine Blair. I will admit, I did originally roll and I got a 20 for that stack. Unfortunately, book 20 was The Grim Company by Luke Scull. It is mid-June as of filming, and the Amazing Readathon is in full swing, and I've already read 6 books for that. I just need to not have big epic fantasies on my TBR for this month. And I don't want to pull that book and then not get to it. So I will admit that first pull I did put it back, and I rolled again and I got a 9, and that meant I ended up with The Beckoning Shadow. This one I think I put on my wish list way back when I joined BookTube in 2019, and then last year I found it on World of Books, or WOB as it is now, and it was only like £2.50. And I didn't know I was going to be getting not only the hardcover, but this is also includes a signed book plate. I think this was like the Fairy Loot or the Illumicrate edition, but this one still appeals to me even now. Vesper Montgomery can summon your worst fear and turn it into a reality, but she'd rather not. She's learned the hard way that it's an addicting and dangerous power, difficult to control and even harder to understand. One wrong move and you could accidentally hurt someone you love. She's better off alone, thank you very much. But then a chance encounter introduces Vesper to other people like her who have special abilities that separate them from your average baseline human. Finding them leads her to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a spot in the tournament of the Unraveling, where competitors battle it out for a chance to rewrite the past. Determined to avoid using her powers, she turns to Sam Hardy, a former MMA fighter who's also carrying a tragedy he desperately wants to undo. However, helping heal Sam's heart will mean breaking her own, and the competition won't let her ignore what's inside her. She will have to master her powers she has been terrified of since they destroyed her life. This thrilling and fresh contemporary fantasy from debut author Catherine Blair is an action-packed look at what happens when the forces of fear take on the strength of love. So it's going to be sort of like romantasy-esque, but I think it's going to be more on the action side, which is what I like. And I do like contemporary and urban fantasy. Like, I think urban fantasy is my favourite genre of fantasy, or favourite sort of subgenre of fantasy. So yeah, excited for this one, and I'm going to try, I might even start it tonight. I don't know. We shall see. But yeah. Let's get started on this one. I just realised it's 48 hours and I haven't yet started The Beckoning Shadow because I've been reading other things. And so it's a punishment. Let's see how many books I need to get rid of. I am still planning on reading it though, so it's, you know, I'm not going to unhaul it yet, but this means that because I'm not unhauling that one yet, like with the last one, I knew I was unhauling it, so the extra rolls meant I think I rolled a 4, so I ended up actually getting rid of 3, so. Nice. 1, which, as I'm not unhauling that one, means that it's just 1, and I already know. I'm going to unhaul Zora Books Her Happy Ever After because everything about it screamed I would love it, And then the book itself was just a big letdown. And when I'm reading a book about a romance, I want to actually read a book about romance, not a book about all of the food and all of the clothes that every person's wearing, and maybe only about 30% of the book actually about romance. So yeah, gonna get rid of that one. So that's gonna go up on my Vinted. And I'm now gonna go to bed because I was tired and I want to sleep. But I do also want to start the Beckoning Shadow. So I'm going to go to bed. Hope my bedroom, because we've had a big spike in temperature today. It's like 9 degrees hotter today than it has been for the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to take me and my Kindle and my book upstairs and start some reading. 2 days ago, it was still single digits at night and barely above 10 degrees in the day. And my bedroom last night, when I went to bed, was at 24 degrees and I nearly died. But as I said before, I enjoy the sun. I'm not good with heat, so I'm still very nervous about Australia. We're not here for Australia and those things. We are here for books. Beckoning Shadow by Catherine Blair. As you know, I started it after the deadline, so I did roll the dice. I unhauled a book as a punishment, but I still wanted to read this. I went to bed last night thinking I was going to read the first chapter, maybe two, do 10, 20 pages, because I was really tired. I was a bit migrainey. I ended up getting to page 75 and also started another book after that I read the first 2 chapters of. Before I finally went, okay, I now need to actually sleep. Did I actually sleep? I'll let you decide. But I thought it's interesting. It's a little bit abrupt with how it's introducing characters. We're not getting enough time between new characters, so it does feel like we're being a bit bombarded at the minute with new people. And there's quite a lot of reference to things that happened in the past. And again, those little past snippets kind of just appear. There's not really... A couple of times there's been a reason, but there was once or twice where I was like, why was that suddenly thrown into the past? There was nothing needed there. What? And it's felt a little bit like the author almost isn't sure how to bring the lore into it. So she's bringing it in through flashbacks where it's her dad, Vesper's dad, teaching her all about the oddities and their lore and their history. But it's very sort of clunky. There's these people called oddities where it's like, they're not quite human and they have magical abilities. And then all of the oddities have different categories. So there's things like the wisps, I can't remember the names of all of them. She is Considering how much I play Genshin Impact, I should have remembered the word harbinger. But she is a harbinger. And I will say for 75 pages, we've had some travelling, a load of flashbacks, lots of info dumping, lots of lore, a cafe shooting, her using her powers, meeting the main, male, what I reckon is going to be the love interest, a whole gang of people, a new setting, and now being introduced to this tournament, all within the first 75 pages. So if you like really super fast-paced books, where you get everything thrown at you all at once and not always in the most coherent manner, this one is good. But for me, I do like a little bit more spacing with my pacing. I reckon there's at least 8 characters that get introduced within 3 pages, and that's just too much. So at the moment, I'm a bit overwhelmed. I also remembered this wasn't a Fairy Loot, this was the Book Box Club, which is an old subscription box that doesn't exist anymore. I used to get it, and I've still got some of the stuff that I merched from them, and I thought they were really good. But unfortunately, they just couldn't keep it up, and they ended up closing the book box about 3 years ago now, which is really sad. But yeah, the book plate, from the signed book plate, I was like, I know it was a special edition, I just couldn't remember where from. But yeah, it was the book box book the book box club box. Anyway, I'm gonna carry on reading it and see how I get on. Update for The Beckoning Shadow. It's nothing against the book. It's not that I wasn't enjoying it. It's not that I don't think it could be good. Hey, you're in the way. She has a trick. I'm going to show you guys the trick that she has, and it's so cute. Ask nicely. Good girl. It's a small silly thing, but yeah, you say ask nicely. I just forgot that I'm supposed to take a t-shirt upstairs to change into and left it downstairs. Yeah, it's just a little trick that she's always done. Some days she'll just sort of huff at you and be like, I don't really want to do this. Right, I've got a bunch of new shirts and I don't know which one I want to wear. I'm kind of drawn towards the T-Rex. Yeah. I just want to wear something that doesn't make me feel gross. So yeah. There's nothing against it. It's not that I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. It's just, it's been a week or more since I put it down. And it's been in my bag. It's been on my bed. It's been next to me on the sofa. And I haven't been inclined to pick it up. And even now, looking at it, I'm just not inclined to open it. And I feel like just so much was introduced so quickly. I kind of just wasn't following it. So I would rather DNF and unhaul, because normally I would soft DNF it and put it back on the shelf, but with Read It or Reap I can't. So I would rather DNF it and unhaul it and get a new book than try to force myself to read something that I'm not really feeling, and then I'll have like a week to do the next book before the next Read It or Reap is due to come out. So yeah, I just feel like I really want to keep it because it's a really nice hardback. And I'm a sucker for keeping hardbacks. But no, I'm going to take I'm doing it and taking the bookmark out, and we're calling it a day. So that's that one, which means I now need to pick another one. So you'll see me again in a couple of minutes after I've had time to change, make myself feel a bit more human, and pick another book. I think I'm going to go back to the, like, a 1 or a 2 means this stack, a 3 or a 4 means this stack. 3 or 4 means this stack. So we are going to have a 1. So as with last time, it's this stack of books, and we are having 18. For the second time in Read It or Reap, so 2 out of 2 videos so far, and there won't be any more because I don't own any more, we have an Elizabeth MacNeil book. This is Circus of Wonders. I took a chance buying this one. I literally bought it because of how stunningly beautiful it is, because the gold foiling, the like under the dust jacket is gorgeous, the end pages are gorgeous, and it's signed, and I got it I think either half price or discounted because of some reason. I don't really know. I just know that I picked it up. And as you might remember, in round 1 of Read It or Reap, I DNF'd The Doll Factory. This one is also an olden-timey, I think she's definitely a historical writer. 1886, in a coastal village in southern England, Nell picks violets for a living. Set apart from her community because of the birthmarks that speckle her skin, Nell's world is her beloved brother and devotion to the sea. But when Jasper Jupiter's Circus of Wonders arrives in the village, Nell is kidnapped. Her father has sold her, promising Jasper Jupiter his very own leopard girl. It is the greatest betrayal of Nell's life, but as her fame grows and she finds friendship with the other performers and Jasper's gentle brother Toby, she begins to wonder if joining the show is the best thing that's ever happened to her. In London, newspapers describe Nell as the 8th wonder of the world. Figurines are cast in her image and crowds rush to watch her soar through the air. But who gets to tell Nell's story? What happens when her fame threatens to eclipse that of the showman who bought her? And as she falls in love with Toby, can he detach himself from his past and the terrible secret that binds him to his brother? Moving on from the pleasure gardens of Victorian London to the battle-scarred plains of the Crimea, Circus of Wonders is an astonishing story about power and ownership, fame, and the threat of invisibility. So it sounds good. Doesn't sound like something I would typically read, which is why it ended up on the read it or read piles. But this one I'm definitely going to give a go. I did like the writing in Doll Factory, I just didn't like the content. So here's hoping that I will enjoy this one far more. And yeah, as said, it is Tuesday at 10:15 a.m. so I have until Thursday 10:15 to start this one and see what happens. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This one's probably the last book for this vlog because we've had quite a few DNFs for this. I've had a couple of DNFs and a couple of punishments and non-starters for this one. So this will be the final book for this round. But yeah, anyway, gonna get started. This vlog is due out tomorrow. No, 2 days, on the 9th. I've opened it and I've read the first page about 4 times. It's the first time that I've not liked this vlog because it's so pretty and I really want to read it, but I feel like, you know, the whole thing is I have to unhaul if I don't read it. And I don't want to hold on to a book just because it's gorgeous, even though it is one of the most gorgeous books that I've ever had. So annoyed that I didn't. But I didn't read it. I'm not going to roll the punishments. I think I've punished myself enough this vlog. I'm just not motivated to read so far this month. We're a week into July and I just haven't. I think I burnt out from the Amazing Readathon. I just haven't been inclined to read. I'm not very well. I'm currently being monitored for suspected pancreatitis, which is incredible and painful, and I've not been eating, sleeping, or doing much of anything this past week, and I've just not wanted to read. I've just wanted to watch TV. So yeah, I have decided that for the sake of this vlog and the fact that it's not going to get read, I will unhaul Circus of Wonders. This means that round 2 didn't really go very well. I think of 5, 6 books, I completed 1. This is definitely a very on-haul punishment heavy, so I'm really hoping that the next one is going to be a little bit nicer. But we shall see. Don't worry, by the way, this is pen, if you were wondering what this is. This is pen. It was like a Sharpie that I picked up and it dabbed me, and because it's Sharpie, it won't wash off. It's been 2 days. We started with 40. We are ending this one with the unhauls, the DNFs, and the books that I've taken out for July or managed to reshuffle. We are ending this one on 30 books in the stack, so I've managed to shuffle 10 books, and so yeah, we'll be starting part 3 of this on 30 books. And yeah, do I have any hope of getting these down to 0 before I leave? No. So we're in for a big unhaul at the end of the year. Well, end of October, maybe the start of October, so I can try and sell as many as I can before I leave for Australia. But I'm gonna go. Let me know if you have read any of these books from today's video and what you thought of them. Did you also DNF? Did you finish them? Did you enjoy them? And yeah, I will see you next time where hopefully the dice will be nicer and I will actually get more of the books read that I need to get read. We shall see. Anyway, I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe. Don't forget to check out my Patreon and my Etsy, and I will see you on the next one.